The Handkerchief by Great 78. Chapter 128. Underground, Underage, Unburdened, Unhinged. "Where is Fang?" Draco asked once they'd gotten inside of Hagrid's hut and warded the door.
"With Grop, up in the cave we've been staying in. We've been in hiding, you know, for some time now."
Hagrid was bustling around in the cupboard for some tea or a sleeve of biscuits.
"Right, I heard that."
Draco smiled and shook his head in disbelief at Hagrid's audacity, having a party in support of Potter. Sounds like it was quite a party.
"Well, it ended with a bang, that's for sure," Hagrid chuckled. "Damn, I thought I had a few biscuits tucked away in here. I'm starving and I got nothing."
He'd only found 2 old butterbeer bottles, and these he brought to the table. Draco withdrew his last 2 bacon and egg sandwiches, and heated them with his wand, passing one to Hagrid.
"Good thing I brought my own food to this party, then," he joked.
Hagrid thanked him and took the sandwich gratefully. They raised their butterbeers in a toast.
"To winning the battle!"
cried Hagrid.
"To winning the war,"
murmured Draco, and Hagrid nodded solemnly. The oversized man finished his sandwich in 3 bites, and after having survived the ordeal of getting into Hogwarts grounds, Draco wasn't too far behind.
"So, what's your plan?"
Hagrid asked when he was done. "I'm honestly not sure. I have to assume that Hermione has been going non-stop with hardly a chance to think straight this whole time. She's not been able to message me in over an hour. I guess I'll wait here until I know something." He removed his coin for his mother and spoke to it. "At Hogwarts. Potter must believe the last object is here. Battle imminent." Her reply came only a moment later. "Forces gathering at Manor. Apparating into Hogsmeade. Plan is to gather in Forbidden Forest."
He replied, "Be careful in there. Lots of creatures."
A different coin warmed in his pocket. It was Blaise.
"Going to free Theo. Likely tied up in dark arts classroom for a few hours now. Should have been back by now."
Draco responded in alarm. "When you say tied up, what do you mean?"
Blaise answered, "Chained up is more accurate."
A cold chill swept Draco.
"Yeah," said Hagrid sadly when Draco repeated this to him. "I'd heard a bit about that just before I fled. Thought about going up to the castle, tearing Cairo from limb to limb, but I knew that you know who'd probably just send another one in its place, and the next one might not fall for the kid's tricks so easy."
His handkerchief warmed finally, and Draco nearly knocked over his butterbeer in his haste to read it. "We are inside the Room of Requirement at Hogwarts. Harry is going to look at a statue of Rowena Ravenclaw to see her diadem. Lots of people arriving from all over. Ginny said you went to the lake to find us, and then you met her. I'm glad you made it out of the bank all right. And Remus said you told him to bring the order. He listened. The Room of Requirement was quite full when I left to use the toilet." Draco breathed a huge sigh of relief. They had actually made it safely into the castle, somehow, even with the caterwauling charm, and it sounded like they were still searching for whatever it was of Ravenclaw's, likely this diadem. Should he mention having the sword? He had no real way to get it to her. Leaving it for her in the broom cupboard outside of the Great Hall for her to collect did not sound the least bit heroic. Plus, they all thought Griphook had it still, and likely had no idea that the goblin was dead. If Hermione suddenly waltzed into the Room of Requirement with it, it would be highly suspicious. But they needed it to destroy the Horcruxes, and time was running short. Just as he was about to tell her and see if they could formulate a plan together for her to get it back, the handkerchief warmed again. "What is it, Ron? I'll be right out." Weasley must be pestering her to come out of the loo. What did he need that was so urgent? There were several seconds of silence, and then the message appeared. "Well, Ron, that's simply brilliant. Yes, let's go." Draco sat up straight in alarm. Where was she going with Weasley?
They were safe in the Room of Requirement. Going out into the castle meant possibly crossing the Carrows, or Lord Voldemort himself, if he was already here. He wrote back, "Hermione, where are you going?" Her reply came at once. "Oh, what? Oh no, I'm fine, Ron, sorry. No, my wrist is fine. I might have just twisted it funny, holding on to the dragon. Yes, I'm sure, I'm perfectly all right." Draco knew that Hermione must have just remembered that she hadn't closed the connection of the handkerchiefs before talking to Weasley. She sent a new message. "So, what made you think of collecting basilisk fangs from the Chamber of Secrets to destroy the Horcruxes, Ron? That's bloody brilliant." Draco's mouth dropped open a bit. There was a dead basilisk below the castle. That was bloody brilliant. Perhaps she did not need this sword at all, and Weasley had thought of this. Maybe he wasn't the world's most useless brat after all. "How will we get in, though? Didn't you say the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets had collapsed?" Then, a few seconds later, she said, "Oh, brooms. Yes, that's a good idea." Draco smiled. Hermione had done more flying in the last day than she likely ever wanted to do again. Another message appeared. "Hello, Myrtle. Yes, it has been a while. It's good to see you." Then, no, I haven't seen my friend lately. I'm not sure if he's here. Come on, Ron, let's do this. How did you get it open last time?" A pause, then, "I have no idea, Ron. I'm sure she's just talking about Harry. What other friends do Myrtle and I have in common? Come on, let's work on opening this chamber. How do you think it worked?" Draco laughed to himself. He would recognize that righteous indignation and deflection anywhere. A few minutes later, "Oh, that's amazing! Brilliant, Ron!" It was about 10 more minutes until another message appeared. Draco paced a line in the hearthrug whilst he waited. He checked in with Blaise. "Theo all right?" Blaise wrote back, "Yes, his arms are sore from being strung up. Sluggy just came in, said entire school is meeting in the Great Hall." If everyone was gathering in the Great Hall, this might be Draco's best chance to get inside, without being seen by a lot of people. "Hagrid, I'm going to go ahead to the school. Everyone's meeting in the Great Hall. It's my best chance to get inside." Draco picked up his rucksack, patting his pockets to ensure that his wand, coins, and handkerchief were all in place. "Okay, Draco, I'm going to get back to the cave. Gotta make sure Grawpy and Fang are all right, ready to fight," Hagrid said, putting their cups in the sink. "Be safe in there, all right?" "I should be saying that to you, Hagrid," Draco smirked. He wasn't sure which was a worse idea, sneaking into a castle to fight Lord Voldemort, or walking through the Forbidden Forest after nightfall. Hagrid chortled, then swung wide the back door, stomping off into the pumpkin patch, and then the forest that lay just beyond his back steps. Draco turned to go out to the front door. As he hurried down the front steps, he was struck by memories from what felt like many years ago, of spying on Potter and his friends, memories of visiting Hagrid to see the wonder that was Norbert. His handkerchief warmed as he neared the front steps. He drew to the side of the locked front doors, wondering for only a moment how he was going to get inside. As he approached, Professor Sprout was making her way precariously up the walking path to the front door, balancing trays of venomous tentacula, levitating far more plants along in front of her, as well as a large crate of earmuffs, like the ones they had used in second year when they repotted mandrakes. "Ah, Mr. Malfoy, this is perfect timing. Hold these trays, please, whilst I open the doors." Without waiting for an answer, she deposited the trays unceremoniously into Draco's arms, and tapped the locks on the door with her wand. Draco recovered from his surprise at being recognized, and yet accepted by his former teacher so easily. He hoisted the plants a bit higher in his arms, to better obscure his face. "Where to, Professor?" he asked, watching as streams of students poured into the Great Hall. There was a loud hubbub of discussion going on. Thankfully, most of the students were far too busy speculating about what was going on to notice that Sprout's assistant
had nondescript robes and white blonde hair, obscured by the various branches.
"I think we'll go to classroom 11. Right down this way, Mr. Malfoy. This is Firenze's room. I find him to be a good ally."
"Oh, I suppose so," Draco answered. He did not know much about Firenze and where he stood on any matters, but he was not going to argue with the witch. As they crossed the entrance hall, his robe pocket warmed. Draco moved as fast as he could to Firenze's divination classroom, arranging the plants carefully, according to Sprout's instruction. Sprout hurried away to the Hufflepuff common room to make sure that everyone was out, leaving Draco to check the handkerchief for the message that had come earlier. "Oh my goodness! Did you know this snake was so big? Do you think we can extract them magically?" As he read, a new message appeared, as apparently the extraction had gone well. "Okay, I'm sure this will be enough basilisk fangs. Let's go back to the room of requirement." Then a pause. "Are you sure? Should we do it right here?" Draco stared down at the words. What were they doing, exactly? "You really think I should stab it? Are you sure?" Then she apparently responded to Weasley. "Yes, that's true. It seems like everyone's had a go at destroying a Horcrux. I guess I'll take my chance now." There was a very long pause, during which Draco tried to imagine what could be happening. Hermione was planning to destroy the cup, it seemed. How difficult was destroying a Horcrux, he wondered. From the bit he'd heard and read, it could not be easy. Then, "No! It's not true! They care about me! You're lying!" Draco could feel the urgency and passion in her words, and he wondered what Weasley could possibly be saying or doing to cause this reaction. Should he go try to help her? He felt useless, so near and yet so far away from her. "Give him hell," he urged her silently. Finally, she spoke again. "Oh my God! Ron, I did it! I really did it!" There was a short pause, and then she spoke once more. "The cup, it tried to make me think that you and Harry and other people were disloyal, not my true friends. That they didn't care about me. No, I know it didn't say anything out loud. It's like it was planting the thoughts in my head." Weasley must have said something, because she answered him. "Really? It showed you what?" The wizard spoke again, unheard by Draco, who was forced to guess at what he was saying. Then Hermione responded. Oh, Ron, I'm sorry you saw something like that. But no, I'm not interested in Harry that way. He's like a brother to me. I could never. But, Ron, I feel like we should... No, never mind. Let's just talk later, okay? Come on, we need to find Harry, and I'm not looking forward to flying out of here. Let's get back up to the 7th floor. Draco hesitated. He wanted to see her, to help her, but she was alone with Weasley now. If he raced up there and encountered the two of them, Weasley would likely try to hex him as soon as he rounded the corner. But he might have to chance it. He eased himself out of classroom 11, moving quickly towards the staircase, when a voice from the great hall stopped him. To his surprise, it was McGonagall, not Snape, speaking. He moved closer to the hall, stopping just behind one of the great wooden doors. He stood in the shadows to listen.
"When I give the word, you will organize your house and take your charges in an orderly fashion to the evacuation point,"
Professor McGonagall said.
"What if we want to stay and fight?"
The sometimes pompous but now quite stalwart voice of Ernie Macmillan rang out, in answer to Professor McGonagall's instructions.
"If you are of age, you may stay,"
replied Professor McGonagall.
"Where's Professor Snape?"
the voice of Violetta called from the Slytherin table.
"He has, to use the common phrase, done a bunk," replied Professor McGonagall.
Most of the room cheered. Behind the door, Draco stood stunned. Why would Snape abandon his post now? It made no sense. Once again, Draco nearly had to wonder what master Snape was serving. The school was facing the biggest challenge it ever would. Potter was likely about to die, and Snape left. McGonagall was discussing the castle's protective enchantments, but was interrupted by a cold, familiar voice that made Draco suck in a breath in surprise. "I know that you are preparing to fight." Lord Voldemort's voice struck fear in everyone gathered here, Draco was certain. Several students startled or called out in surprise at the voice. "Your efforts are futile. You cannot fight me. I do not want to kill you. I have great respect for the teachers of Hogwarts. I do not want to spill magical blood." Everyone had grown quite silent, waiting. "Give me Harry Potter, and none shall be harmed. Give me Harry Potter, and I shall leave the school untouched. Give me Harry Potter, and you will be rewarded. You have until midnight," said the voice of Lord Voldemort. There was total silence for a moment. Draco chanced to look around the door, and watched in horror as one person moved, breaking the stillness. It was from the Slytherin table, and at first Draco almost didn't recognize her, even though he'd only seen her a couple of months ago. She looked maniacal, her hair hanging limp and longer than Draco had ever seen it, her sleek makeup disheveled.
"But he's there! Potter's there! Someone grab him!"
Pansy Parkinson yelled out. Draco struggled to maintain control of his disgust with her. But no one grabbed Potter. Instead, first the Gryffindors, quickly followed by the Hufflepuffs and Ravenclaws, stood facing her and the rest of the Slytherins, most of whom sat, uncertain or defiant.
"Thank you, Miss Parkinson. You will leave the hall first with Mr. Filch. The rest of your house can follow," said Professor McGonagall sharply. The Slytherins stood as a group and turned to follow Filch. Draco melted back into the shadows behind the door as they passed. Draco noticed a flitter of movement and looked up to see Theo, Blaise, Violetta and Urquhart make a sharp right and peel off from the group, turning towards the dungeons. He knew of all the Slytherins, these would most likely be the only ones to stay and fight against Lord Voldemort. Even the ones who did not care for the Dark Lord's ambitions were not motivated enough to fight him. The Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs then left the Great Hall, and Draco overheard a few talking about the 7th floor, where evidently the evacuation point was. Last was a small band of Gryffindors. Draco heard McGonagall say, "Absolutely not, Creevy, go! And you, Peakes!" He stilled. Creevy. Both of the Creevy brothers were supposed to be in America. 2 lone figures exited the Great Hall last, and one hurried up the staircase. The young man on the stairs turned to look back at the other, but Colin Creevy waved at him in a "you-go-ahead" gesture. Creevy turned right and backed up slowly, acting as though he wanted to blend into the very shadows that Draco himself currently occupied. "What do you think you're doing?" Draco spoke quietly at Creevy's back. Colin jumped, clearly startled at his voice. The younger wizard turned swiftly, wand drawn, then spotted Draco's telltale white blonde hair. "Malfoy, what are you doing here?" Colin asked. "Likely here for the same reason you are. But my question is, what do you think you're doing? How did you even get here?" Draco asked, a slight edge to his voice. Colin was a muggle-born, and underage, the last person that needed to be here, fighting. "I flew back a week ago. Got an owl from someone in my year. They told me what was happening over here. The rumors about Harry captured and trapped at your house. I knew things were getting worse. I knew I needed to come back. So I took some of your money. My parents have hardly touched it, by the way. And I bought myself a plane ticket back. I took a train straight from the airport up to Scotland, and I disapparated into the Hogshead when I was reasonably close." "You really should not be here," Draco admonished, and the other boy gave him a droll look. "I'm sure there's plenty of people who would say the same about you." Colin tilted his head at Draco with a smirk, but the look faded just a bit. "Only problem is, my wand. I brought it with me, of course, but I didn't use it until I was on the train. I know about the trace for underage wizards, of course, but I thought I might be safe with just one small spell." "What happened?" Draco asked urgently. "I was thirsty, and the train had run out of water somehow. The previous stop had a water main break, and they couldn't refill the drinking water tanks. It was going to be about 60 minutes until the next stop. I had a water bottle, but it was empty, so I took a chance and refilled it with my wand. Well, unfortunately, someone saw me do it. A snatcher. He and his mate sort of cornered me, and one reached for my wand. I backed into the toilet, and we fought for control of the wand whilst I tried to slide the door closed. The wand got stuck in the door. It made a small crack in the wood. I managed to disapparate into the Hogshead, but my wand was seriously broken by the magic. Hasn't worked since." Colin reached into his trouser pocket and pulled out the wand, a barely held-together twig with a white feather core inside. "Only thing holding it together is the hippogriff feather. I had Peaks repair it, but the most I can do is create a little spark before it breaks again." Draco pulled his rucksack from his back, reaching inside and removing the remaining wands. "Will any of these work for you?" Colin's eyes lit up, and he hesitantly reached for a wand in the middle of the group. Mahogany and penguin feather. "This one?" The wand glowed at the tip as he picked it up. Colin made a non-verbal swish and flick motion, and a nearby painting removed itself from the wall and levitated a few feet off of the ground, much to the consternation of its inhabitants, who protested loudly. Colin made a hooking motion with the new wand, and the painting's rightful place was restored. He gave a small laugh and turned back to Draco. "Thanks, mate. Really owe you one." Draco gave him a stern look. "Can my payment be that you go into the room of requirement and evacuate with your classmates?" "And miss all this fun? Not a chance, Malfoy," Colin said with a smile. Draco huffed a small laugh, and his hardened look grew softer. "Be safe out there, Colin." "You too, Draco." The boy turned towards the cellars and hurried away. Another strong voice, this time belonging to Kingsley Shacklebolt, rang out from the Great Hall. "We've only got half an hour until midnight, so we need to act fast. A battle plan has been agreed between the teachers of Hogwarts and the Order of the Phoenix."
Thank you for listening to this chapter of The Handkerchief by Great78.